Hello. I know I look funny, I'm doing a face mask right now. But I recently got Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy. And I want to read it. So the only way that I will read something is if I'm reading it out loud. So that is what I'm doing right now. I am in the middle of 7 other books. I'm in the middle of Burning of the Books. I'm in the middle of Edgar Allan Poe's the complete tales and poems of Edgar Allan Poe, and I'm also in the middle of The Godfather. So there's a lot of things happening now, but I really want to read The Divine Comedy. So yes. Let me just skip past the page of contents. So we're going to start with the introduction because it'll help us understand more of the historical background, and then we'll start with Inferno, of course, and then Purgatorio, I think that's what it's called. Hold on. Purgatorio, and then Paradiso. Right? I just want to make sure I said that right. Yeah. Okay. So, let's get started. Introduction. Nearly 700 years old, the Divine Comedy of Dante Alighieri still impresses with its ambitious scope and vision, aka the world's first fan fiction. The 3-volume work takes for its grand theme the experiences of life and death and explores its possibilities in the 3 metaphysical settings alluded to in each book's title, Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. The poem's execution in Terza Rima, the rhyme scheme invented for it, has never been duplicated. It is acknowledged as the main epic poem of modern Italian literature and the foremost epic poem of the Christian religion. It has influenced writers ever since its publication, as the Argentinian writer Jorge Luis Borges says, As soon as I open it tomorrow, I will discover things I did not see before. I know this book will go on beyond my waking life and beyond ours. Genesis. Dante Alighieri was born in Florence, Italy between May and June 1265. His ancestry was noteworthy, though his family was of modest means. Both his parents died when he was young. Dante was betrothed in marriage to Gemma di Manetto Donati and was married in 1285. He got married when he was 20. Together they had 3 children. Yet Gemma was never the love of his life, and Dante never wrote about her. That prize he reserved for the object of his highest esteem, the beloved and unobtainable Beatrice Portinari. It's very Italian. Okay. Dante began writing the Divine Comedy around 1306 after he had been convicted of barratry, the selling of offices, by a pro-papacy political faction, the Black Guelphs. The conviction occurred in absentia on January 27, 1302, and was based on trumped-up charges. It resulted in Dante, a member of the opposing anti-papacy White Guelphs, being stripped down of his property and banished from his native Florence. Later he was threatened with death and should he ever return. Dante completed the comedy in 1321. Dante never returned to Florence. For the 2 decades following his banishment, he wandered through various towns in Italy, including Verona, Forli, Arezzo, Treviso, and Ravenna, where he died of malaria on September 13th, 1321. Well, I'm fucking glad he finished the comedy before he died. Organization. The 3 books of the Divine Comedy comprised 100 cantos, divided into 33 cantos each in Purgatorio and Paradiso, and 34 in Inferno. The additional canto in Inferno serves as an introduction to the entire Divine Comedy. Inferno, the first book, is set during April 1300 when Dante was 35. He was halfway through his biblical appointed life of 70 years and 10, and so I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. 70 years ago. I think that means 10. Well, then why wouldn't they just say, okay, I don't know. So fit the pronouncement in Canto 1 that he, Dante, the narrator, is midway upon the journey of our life. The year 1300 also marks the beginning of Dante's public service in Florence, from which he would be barred. Numbers are strongly symbolic in the Divine Comedy, particularly the number 3. The comedy's verse scheme, terza rima, is an 11-symbol, or, I'm not reading that, hendecasyllable, there you go, line that falls into 3-line tercets that follow the interlinking rhyme scheme ABA, BCB, CDC, DEDE, or ABA, BCB, CDC, DEDEE. Dante invented these 3-line stanzas to serve as the basic unit of his narrative. Each unit expresses a thought. The units join together in larger canto through the interlinking incanto through the interlinking rhyme scheme. The middle line rhymes with the outer 2 of the next stanza. The pattern continues throughout the poem. The architecture of the worlds Dante writes about is equally elegant and complex, and is also shaped by the number 3. The word inferno divides into 9 levels, which further divide into descending order along the lines consistent with 3 Aristotelian classes of sin. 1. Sin of incontinence, due to the inability to control natural desire. 2. Sins of brutishness or violence, characterized by turning the naturally repulsive into something appealing. And 3. Sins of malice or fraud, i.e. wrong actions caused by abusing reason. Above these 3 divisions is an anteroom, home to the neutrals who did nothing with their lives. After encountering the neutrals, Dante and Virgil are ferried across the river at Charon. On the other side, they begin their journey through the concentric circles of hell. The first circle is home to the virtuous heathen. The circles that follow are for incontinent sinners. The second one is for lascivious, the third the gluttonous, the fourth for the avaricious and prodigal, the fifth for the wrathful, and the sixth for the heretics. Violent sinners follow. The 7th circle is home to those who committed violence against others, violence against themselves, and violence against nature and art. Next are fraudulent sinners. The 8th circle is the realm of panderers and seducers, flatterers, simonists, diviners, barrators, of course, because he put the barrators in hell because he got barred. I lost my thought. Hypocrites, thieves, fraudulent counselors, makers of discord, and falsifiers. The makers of discord? They better run. Dante knew about them. Sorry. The 9th circle has sinners who are treacherous to kindred, country, and cause, guests, and lords and benefactors. The world of Purgatorio is a place of transition and hope. Unlike the eternities of hell and heaven, Purgatory is a place where inhabitants make acts of penance and gain absolution. Dante depicts Purgatory as a mountain, built when Satan was thrown from heaven to the center of the earth, and the earth closed behind him. Through Purgatory, ordinary sinners such as Dante may climb back spiritually and physically to the garden that humans once enjoyed as Eden. Purgatory is divided into 3 parts, defined by its different types of love: perverse, defective, and excessive. Perverse love derives from the taking delight in others' misfortunes and wrong acts. Inadequate love is practiced by those who half-heartedly pursue God's love. Excessive love is felt by those who exceed the limits of love for earthly pleasures. Additionally, Purgatory is divided into 7 circles for purging the 7 deadly sins. The 10 heavens of Paradiso are arranged in order of increasing proximity to God. Architecturally, Paradise follows the Ptolemaic model, consisting of 7 concentric planetary spheres that circle the Earth. Dante ascends these 7 planets, each one providing different moral and spiritual meanings from inconstancy and to temperance. Afterward, Dante encounters the souls in stellar heaven, the angels in the primum mobile, and finally the heaven beyond space and time, where God, his angels, and the most blessed humans live. In Divine Comedy, this is Dante's ultimate goal. Chronology. The events of the comedy take place over 7 days in April 1300. The night on which Dante loses himself in the forest is Good Friday. Dante and Virgil pass through the chasms of hell during Saturday. On Saturday evening, the 2 descend Satan's sides to the center of the earth. By dawn on Easter Sunday, they ascend to the foot of Mount Purgatory. The 2 traverse Purgatory, and Dante enters Paradise. The journey ends on Thursday evening. Literary form. Dante's Divine Comedy is at its most basic level a comedy. Dante calls it the Commedia because he wrote it in the low and middle styles, not in the lofty verses of works such as Virgil's and Aeneid. Further, Dante calls his work a comedy because it ends happily. It allows those who desire salvation to be saved. Yeah, I don't know why I'm doing a history lesson, but comedy doesn't always mean haha funny. It just means a story that ends in triumph. It's the opposite of tragedy. So, yeah. Instead of everybody dying, everybody lives. Cosmology. In the scheme of the Divine Comedy, the Earth is the center of the universe. Hell is under the city of Jerusalem in the northern hemisphere. It appears as a vast reversed cone reaching from near the Earth's surface to the center, the farthest point from God. The sides of the cone form diminishing concentric circles where the different classes of impenitent reside. Each level is set aside for the worst type of sinner. Jerusalem, where Christ is crucified, is the center of hell. Mount Purgatory is the southern hemisphere. The highest heaven is beyond space and time. Theology. Much of the theology of the comedy derives from the teachings of theologian Thomas Aquinas. Born in 1225 near Naples, Italy, Aquinas studied at a Benedictine monastery, then went on to study at the University of Naples, where he received his doctorate in theology. For the rest of his life, he lectured in philosophy and theology. His principal subject of study was Aristotle, whose philosophy was central to Aquinas' main work. Summa Theologica, which he completed by 1273. He died near Rome in 1274. Wow, they always be dying after their, most important works come out. That's funny. Not really, but it's kind of funny. Okay. Through his studies of Aristotle, Aquinas confirmed the soundness of logical argument, using it to prove the existence of God and to investigate his nature. Aquinas fashioned a worldview that conveyed the divinity and truth of Christianity with logical rigor. Dante follows this rigorous logical thinking throughout the Divine Comedy. The conception of hell, the concentric spheres, the heavenly bodies, the angelic visions, the vision of the prime mover are all informed by Aquinas. Both men join reason and faith at the center of the human quest for truth. The truth they find is God's will. Personae. On his journey, Dante encounters a mix of historic and topically relevant personalities: statesman Brutus, nobles Count Ugliano, popes Boniface, lovers Paolo and Francesca, and legendary figures Ulysses. Together they illustrate the philosophy, theology, politics, and drama of the Middle Ages. Of those characters, the most important are the two guides who accompanied Dante through his travels, Virgil and Beatrice. Virgil, the poet who leads Dante through the many levels of hell and purgatory, was hardly a random choice as a guide. Dante selected Virgil because, in part, he represents who Dante wanted to be, the greatest Roman poet of his time. He also chose Virgil because Dante knew that he and Virgil were both just earthly sinners. Their encounter is a great artistic moment, what critic Ernest Curtius refers to as the meeting of the great Latins. Virgil, Publius Virgilius whatever, from 70 to 19 BC, lived his adult life amidst the political chaos following the assassination of Julius Caesar in 44 BC. He had survived dispossession because his collection of eclogues, the Bucoliques, was well received by the Minister of Culture, Maecenas. These names I'm going to butcher because I am Italian, but I don't speak Italian. Between 37 and 30 BC, Virgil wrote the Georgics, a wish for peace under Octavius Caesar, Augustus. From the time he died, Virgil wrote his greatest work, the Aeneid. Wow. They always die. Right after their work's published. I'm glad their work is published, but... The 12-volume homage to the Iliad and Odyssey told of Trojan prince Aeneas. Aeneas? I'm just going to say Aeneas, because I can't say Aeneas. Expressed faith in Rome's future under Augustus. The poem was considered a great triumph for the Roman people and government. Dante was strongly influenced by Aeneid and borrowed from it for the Divine Comedy. He uses the construct of traversing the underworld, as Virgil does, to frame his journeys through hell and purgatory, yet he did not accept all the thinking of the day about Virgil. He also found limitations to Virgil, whom he felt lacked understanding of the Roman Empire's political and religious greatness. Because he is a pagan, Virgil is not allowed into heaven. For that journey, Dante needs Beatrice. Okay, hold on. 1 second. To it. Dante needs Beatrice. In addition to being his ideal object of affection, Beatrice is Dante's incarnation of holiness. In the Purgatorio, he refers to her as holy and alert. In reality, Beatrice is most likely Beatrice Portinari, 1266 to 1290, a wealthy Florentine girl whom Dante first encountered when he was 9. From then until the end of his life, Dante was enraptured by Beatrice. They met once again 9 years later, but because the two were already otherwise betrothed, Dante could love Beatrice only from afar. In this, he followed the medieval practice of courtly love. That sounds like I said courtney love. Dante tells the history of his love for Beatrice in his collection of love poems and prose, La Vita Nuova. Sorry. That means the new life. Circa 1293 to 1294. After Beatrice's death in 1290, Dante dedicated the rest of his life to his love for her. but a later vision told him that he was still unworthy of understanding her ultimate spiritual significance. For that, he had to gain the inner enlightenment and intellectual improvement learned from his journey through hell and purgatory. Only then could he experience the divine love of Beatrice in paradise. Translations. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, 1807 to 1882, was already one of America's leading poets by the mid-19th century, where he began composing his English translation of the Divine Comedy. Completed between 1865 and 1867, Longfellow's translation reflects the poet's gifts as a creator of demotic, accessible works, just as his own hugely popular poems developed an American interest in poetry. Longfellow's translation increased American interest in Dante by linking the Italian poet to a national American voice. While Longfellow's translation of the Divine Comedy became a standard for 19th century English language editions, it is but part of a long, distinguished line of literary translations of Dante. Given that no original transcript of the Divine Comedy exists, all Dante's volumes are in some form of a translation. Among the earliest was that of Italian writer Giovanni Boccaccio. It's a great name. 1313 to 1375 in 1348. I'm so bad with numbers, guys. I'm so bad with saying numbers out loud. Like, it's not even funny. Modern English translations include those by scholars Charles Eliot Norton, Carlyle Oakey Winstead, Lawrence Binion, Alan Mandelbaum, and John Sinclair. Novelist translators include Dorothy Sayers. Poets include William Blake, John Chidarny, and Robert Pinsky. All have wrestled with the work in various ways, unable to reproduce the terza rima rhyme scheme without damaging the movement of the text. Translators have accommodated themselves with off-rhyme, blank verse, free rhyme, and prose. The vivid imagery in the Divine Comedy has inspired artists and led to many distinguished illustrations of the text. Among the most highly esteemed are those by William Blake and Gustave Doré. Artists inspired by Dante include Spanish painter Salvador Dalí, who created a series of paintings from the Divine Comedy. Legacy. The Divine Comedy was immediately acknowledged as an original masterwork. One index to interest in it is the main manuscripts of the comedy that were prepared during the 14th and 15th centuries. I don't know what that sentence means. That's one index to interest in it. So, yeah, I don't know. By the 18th century, however, the Divine Comedy had fallen from critical esteem. In his Philosophical Dictionary, 1764, French writer Voltaire dismissed... Oh, yeah, I remember Voltaire. I know Voltaire. He was also a philosopher. Dismissed Dante. His reputation will go on increasing because scarce anybody reads him. Slay. 18th century British novelist Horace Walpole sloughed him off as a mouthpiece of the Catholic Church. By the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Romantic writers such as William Blake rediscovered the text. Literary interest blossomed in the 20th century. Dante was honored by writers including James Joyce, T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, and Samuel Beckett, all of whom were inspired by his writings. Portions of Eliot's The Waste Land draw from the comedy. The Divine Comedy has been and will remain a staple of the college curriculum. Like Plato, Aristotle, Virgil, and Shakespeare, Dante will be taught at school and promoted to readers who yearn to learn of the world's best thinking and writing. Melinda Corey. Melinda Corey is the author or co-author of over 300... I don't care. I'm sorry, babe. This is what that motherfucker looked like. Not gonna lie, I thought he would look more boyish. I don't know. This book's, like, attitude and, like, what we just read, he sounds very boyish. I don't know. So, Divine Comedy, Inferno. I'll show you guys the illustrations like I'm a fucking elementary school teacher. So, before I begin with Canto 1, I'm gonna take a shower. And I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. And I have my head wrapped because I have oil in my hair. So, anyways, I'm just going to be reading. Let's actually see how long Canto 1 is. It's pretty long, but it's only like 12 pages. Okay, so let's read Canto 1 of Dante's Inferno. And as the introduction said, this is more of an introduction to the Divine Comedy as a whole than it is just the Inferno part. So let's get into it. The dark forest, the hill of difficulty, the panther, the lion, and the wolf, Virgil. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a dark forest, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. Ah me, how hard a thing it is to say. What was this for a savage rough and stern, which in the very thought renews the fear. So bitter it is, death is a little more, but of the good to treat which there I found, speak will I of the other things I saw there. I cannot well repeat how there I entered, so full was I of slumber at the moment, in which I had abandoned the true way. But after I had reached a mountain's foot, at that point where the valley terminated, which had with consternation pierced my heart, upward I looked, and I beheld its shoulders vested already with that planet's rays which leadeth others right by every road. Then was the fear a little quieted, that in my heart's lake that had endured throughout the night which I had passed so piteously. Oh yeah, so here's Dante in the dark forest. And it says, it's just the lines 1 through 3 again, but I'll read it. Midway through the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. Oh, he's so scared. Poor Dante. And even as he, who, with distressful breath, forth issued from the sea upon the shore, turns to the water, perilous, and gazes, so did my soul, that was still fleeing onward, turn itself back to re-behold the path which never yet a living person left. After my weary body I had rested, the way resumed I on the desert slope, so that the firm foot ever was the lower. And lo, almost where the ascent began, a panther light and swift exceedingly, which with a spotted skin was covered o'er. And never moved she from before my face, nay, rather did I impede so much my way, that many times I to return had turned. The time was the beginning of the morning, and the sun up was mounting with those stars, that with him were, what time the love divine. At first in motion set those beauteous things, so were to me occasion of good hope. The variegated skin of that wild beast, the hour of time, and the delicious season, but not so much that did not give me fear, a lion's aspect which appeared to me. He seemed as if against me he were coming, with head uplifted with ravenous hunger, so that it seemed the air was afraid of him. So there is Dante and the Panther, and then there is Dante and the Lion. These are some awesome fucking pictures. And a she-wolf that with all hungerings seemed to be laden in her meagerness, and many folk has cause to live forlorn. She brought upon me so much heaviness with the affright that from her aspect came, that I the hope relinquished of the height. And as he who is willingly acquires, and the time comes that causes him to lose, who weeps in all his thoughts and is despondent, even such made me that beast without in peace, which coming on against me by degrees, thrust me back thither where the sun is silent. While I was rushing downward to the lowland, before mine eyes did one present himself, who seemed from long-continued silence hoarse. When I beheld him in the desert vast, have pity on me unto him, I cried, whichever thou art, or shade, or real man. He answered me, not man. Man once I was, and both my parents were of Lombardy, and Mantuians by country both of them. Sub Julio I was born, though it was late, and lived at Rome under the good Augustus during the time of false and lying gods. As a poet I was, and I sang that just son of Anchises, who came forth from Troy, after that Ilion the superb was burned. But thou, why goest thou back to such annoyance? Why climbest thou not the Mount Delectable, which is the source and cause of ever joy? Now art thou that Virgilius, and that fountain which spreads abroad so wide a river of speech. I made response to him with bashful forehead. Oh, of the other poets' honor and light, avail me the long study and great love that have impelled me to explore thy volume. Thou art my master, and my author thou. Thou art alone the one whom I took the beautiful style that has done honor to me. Behold the beast for which I have turned back, Do thou protect me from her, famous sage, for she doth make my veins and pulses tremble. Thee it behove to take another road, respond he, when he beheld me weeping, if from this savage place thou wouldest escape, because this beast, at which thou criest out, suffers not any one to pass her way, but so doth harass him that she destroys him, and has a nature so malign and ruthless, that never doth she glut her greedy will, and after food is hungrier than before. Many the animals with whom she weds, and more they shall be still under the greyhound comes, who shall make her perish in her pain. So this is the panther following Dante and Virgil. I think Virgil was the lion, by the way. I don't know if you got that. I don't know if you guys picked up on that. He shall not feed on either earth or pelf, but upon wisdom and on love and virtue. Twixt Feltro and Feltro shall his nation be. Of that low Italy shall he be the savior, on whose account the maid Camilla died. Euralius, Turnus, Nicias of their wounds. Through every city shall he hunt her down, until he shall have driven her back to hell, there from whence envy first did her loose. Therefore I think and judge it for thy best, thou follow me, and I will be thy guide, and lead thee hence through the eternal place, where thou shalt hear the desperate lamentations, shalt see the ancient spirits disconsolate, who cry out each one for the second death, and thou shalt see who are content, those who contented are within the fire, because they hope to come, whenever it may be, to the blessed people, to whom then, if thou wist to ascend, a soul shall be, for that then I more wealthy with her at my department I will leave thee, because that emperor, who reigns above, in that I was rebellious to his law, wills that through me none come to his city. He governs everywhere, and there he reigns, there is his city, his lofty throne. O happy he whom thereto he elects. And I to him, poet, I thee entreat, by that same God whom thou didst never know, so that I may escape this woe and worse, thou wouldest conduct me there where thou hast said, that I may see the portal of St. Peter, and those thou markest so disconsolate. Then he moved on, and I behind him followed. So, here's Virgil and Dante getting their sexy little adventure. So that is the end of Canto 1, I guess, of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. So, yeah, they just start their journey. They meet the beast, the panther, and we find Virgil. And he's like, let's go see these hell people, let's go see these purgatory people, let's go see these heaven people. So, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed. Maybe in the future I'll upload these to YouTube. Maybe not when I'm looking like this. But then why would I upload to YouTube if I'm not starting from the beginning? I don't know. I don't really care what I look like on YouTube. Whatever. Alright. See ya.